Bachman's Basement is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show.
Welcome back to Bachman's Basement, the show where we creep down into the dark corners of Stephen King's mind, the ones that rattle, hum, and whisper about what lies beyond the edge of reason. Tonight, we're stepping through a door we might not want to. This isn't a haunted house or a cursed toy. It's a gateway to infinity itself. Stephen King's The Jaunt takes us into the cold, clinical world of science fiction and then drags us screaming into the void between atoms. It's one of those stories that starts like a bedtime tale and ends like a cosmic nightmare. So get comfortable, take a deep breath, and whatever you do, don't stay awake. My name is Chris Patton, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Christopher Clawson. Chris, how are you doing, man?
Doing great. Good to be back.
It's nice to be back. It's always nice to be back. What have you been up to, man? How's the family? How's life? What have you been watching? What have you been doing? All that good stuff.
Yeah, family's doing well. We've been playing that new sort of D&D-esque game, Daggerheart. I might have mentioned that previously, but that's been pretty cool. Seen a few movies. The new Chainsaw Man movie is awesome. And then we just went and saw that new Predator Badlands, which I enjoyed. I understand why some people may not like it so much, but I thought it was good for what it was.
So tell me a little bit about the game you guys have been playing. I'm assuming there's character creation. You said it's a D&D-like.
Yeah, it's called Daggerheart. It's created by the folks at Critical Role. They do a D&D campaign that's, you can watch online. And then they created this game called Daggerheart that has a bunch of pre-made campaigns, but you can use the rules of this game to, create your own campaigns if you wanted as well. I say it's D&D-esque because it's not, it follows a lot of those same concepts, but instead of just rolling for initiative or rolling for, an investigation roll or whatever, you roll 2 dice, 2 D12s, which are hope and fear. And depending on which one, because each dice is, a dark and a light dice, come up with a full number, but in either in hope or fear. So it sort of allows for a different take on things. And I don't know how to put it, but it's you as the player kind of unfold the story more than the DM does, which makes for an interesting change of pace. If you're a D&D fan, then this is something a little different and really fun so far. We've only done a few sessions, my wife and kids and I, and I'm enjoying it so far.
Yeah, it sounds pretty neat. I like the idea of kind of your dice playing more effect on the story based on the either rolling good or evil or fear or however it was that you put it, but that playing into maybe the DM, if you're using, I'm assuming, one of their set storylines, that it also directs how your dungeon master or whoever's hosting the game kind of goes about the paths as well. That's kind of neat. That's almost
it's a choose your own adventure sort of thing.
To that extent. I'm assuming there's multiple character classes and all of that jazz.
Oh yeah. And there's cards, so you build out not only your race, but same thing in D&D, but you have a card. So like my race, the one I chose is a Dracona. So I'm a dragon person. And then I'm a sorcerer. So then I have those sort of that combination of being able to breathe fire, but also to do magic on top of that. So pretty cool.
Yeah, it sounds pretty neat. Yeah, that's something I would definitely dig. Just because there's some of the parts about D&D that I don't necessarily care for is Just like how you roll a character and stuff. It sounds like this kind of alleviates a bit of that in the character creation portion. And it sounds like it's a little easier for people who maybe haven't played D&D or haven't played even D&D in a long time to get into. It sounds like a lighter version of that, especially if you have kind of some built-in campaigns and an easy way for someone to kind of start as a DM as well within your group. So it sounds neat. It really does.
Yeah, so far I'm really enjoying it. Obviously, my wife's DMing it, so I don't know what it's like to be the DM in this game. Maybe I'll find that out down the line, but it's fun to play. I can say that.
So have you finished a campaign, or like how long do the campaigns generally last for one of these things?
So they last as long as they do, which is to say that they can go on.
Depending on how much your characters interact with one another.
Right, or like how you choose to kind of direct the story, because you as the player are directing the story. So the choice is not just to go into a dungeon. Like we wandered into a forest in this world of Fainwick, and things happened to us, and then we ended up somewhere else, and now we're talking to this, it's like a elk god that is directing us somewhere else. But that didn't necessarily have to happen if we wouldn't have made a choice prior to that. And I know I see this every time we're making decisions as a group, and I watch my wife looking at us and not really rolling her eyes, but something akin to that. And I'm just like, oh man, what did we just decide to do? And she's just like, oh, we'll see how this goes.
Roll for initiative. Yeah, that sounds cool, man.
Pretty cool. So yeah. Well, I guess we should probably get to it.
Well, you usually ask me what I've been up to, how I've been doing, but I see how it is.
Let's get to what you've been up to, man. How's your last couple weeks been?
I finished Ninja Gaiden 4, which I don't know that I'd finish it. We probably talked about it on the last show because I know that I'd started it, but I finished it. It is a phenomenal game, and definitely one that I recommend anyone who likes beat 'em ups. With over-the-shoulder perspective. If you played any of the other Ninja Gaiden games, it's a lot of fun. It definitely has aspects of Spider-Man to it a bit with your grappling hook and your ability to move around to attack, and lots of cool like surfing. I don't know, for lack of a better terms, or almost like grinding, kind of jet set radio puzzles and stuff as far as getting across the maps in different ways. That's and cool. Big cinematic boss fights with lots of different kind of like hardcore metal music playing in the background. It also has your Doom type kills in it. So like if you played any of the modern Dooms for like Xbox, like as you kill, you get, power, like skill points and health back. And if you do these execution type kills, and for anyone out there that's played any of the older Ninja Gaidens and are worried about a difficulty spike at certain points, they have an easy mode in the game. If you just want to kind of play it for fun and cinematically, that does exist with auto blocking and all that jazz. So that's been the primary game I've been playing. Finished. And then for the Patton report, I recently did Metal Gear Solid, so I replayed through Metal Gear Solid to capture some of that gameplay. And that was a lot of fun. It's been one that I haven't touched in a while. Going back to it, as an adult, going back to any just straight PlayStation 1 game can be a little bit of a chore, right? Graphically and things like that. But Metal Gear Solid's story and gameplay is enough to kind of keep you involved and excited about it. And then still playing Pokemon Legends ZA. I'm pretty much through with it, but it's kind of one of those games you don't really finish it necessarily. Like there's still a lot that I can do. So that's been the primary thing.
Nice. That's mentioning like older games and getting a remaster. I'm looking forward to that new Halo, original Halo remaster. That looks interesting.
This will be like the fourth time they've remastered that game.
Right. But this one, I guess, that just doesn't update graphics. It updates like mechanics and controls and everything too. So
Oh man, I don't know. Do I like that or do I hate that?
I don't know either, so I'm interested. If it's included in Game Pass, I'm gonna give it a go because it's one of my favorite games. It got me back into gaming 25 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm sure that we'll end up checking it out together at some point as well, knowing some of the people that we know that love original Halo, and also
Co-op,
if they have a
yeah,
co-op mode, that's something we could probably play through in a night, which would be pretty fun. Um,
right?
when they've done the remasters in the past, they have given you options to make it look like the original game or the remastered game and control options. So I hope that they stay true to that in case I just hate whatever they do to the gameplay.
Right.
But I mean, it's a new it's a remastered Halo. I'm sure I'll end up playing it. Like at the very least, it's a good drinking game to play back through the campaign, right?
Yeah, they're fun. I wouldn't call them on the rails games, but they're fun just because you kind of just make your way through them. They're easy enough to just for anyone to pick up and start playing.
And I also think that there's not enough games like that anymore. Like a game where you can play through with a friend and it has a clear-cut completion. It's not a giant sandbox, which
Right?
those are fun too. I'm not, I love a good Red Dead Redemption 2. But that was one thing that was fun about Ninja Gaiden is that it is kind of one of those games where it's like, hey, you can jump in here and you play straight through it, right?
Yeah.
You got a beginning and an end. Here you go.
You piqued my interest on that. Honestly, I might have to check out Ninja Gaiden 4. That sounds cool with the grappling hook.
Yeah, it's definitely cool. But I guess we should get back on track. It's been a while since we chatted, so figured we would talk about some video games and life before we jumped in. But let's get into the general synopsis of Jaunt here. Set in a futuristic world where teleportation, known as jaunting, has revolutionized space travel, the story follows Mark Oates and his family as they prepare to jaunt from Earth to Mars. To calm his children's nerves, Mark recounts the invention of jaunt, discovered by scientist Victor Carroon. Carroon found teleportation worked perfectly on inanimate objects, but living creatures died or when sane when they were awake during the process. The horrifying discovery, though instantaneous in reality, the jaunt feels like an eternity of conscious nothingness to those awake during the process. So the government solution to this was to basically give you, put you under for the time of the travel or right before the travel. The story ends with Mark's son Ricky secretly managing to stay awake during the jaunt, and the old curiosity not necessarily kills the cat in this situation, but leads to madness when they arrive on Mars, with Ricky famously screaming, "It's longer than you think, Dad. It's longer than you think."
Such a classic ending. I think it's one of honestly, King's not known for his great endings, but this is certainly a gut punch of an ending for sure.
It really is, and it's something where you have to take into account like a child's perspective of this being explained to them and being like, well, what would it be like if you did stay awake? Because sometimes as a child, you don't necessarily think things through. Before we jump into, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, that whole idea, like through this whole story, and it's like an hour to listen to, or probably just about an hour to read. It's a real short story. But like the whole time that Dad's telling this story to his kids and wife, I feel like he, and it's even explained that he's trying to stray away from the darker side of things and not really pushing how truly insidiously dangerous this would be if you were awake. And that's, in there lies the problem.
Yeah, I did. I think you're right on that, because it's the idea of it, and I kind of said that in the opening a little bit there, is that it starts out almost like a fairy tale of him explaining what this thing is without it's one of the Grimm's fairy tales that were cleaned up later on.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And it's actually in the tone of the narrator himself, in the way that it's, especially if you're listening to the audible version, it's in the tone. Which before we get into going into scene by scene, because I feel like this was the easiest way to do this for this particular short story, because it is so short and you can kind of go through the whole story and people get a good vibe. So if you're wanting to go listen to this, maybe listen to it and come back. And it's a short one, like I said, it's probably shorter than some of our podcasts. But what was your overall feelings? What does this rate for you on the Stephen King short story list?
This one I just really liked, but I do like science fiction and cosmic horror. And one of my other favorite Stephen King stories, Revival, falls in that same sort of category. But this one, I remember reading it for the first time when I was reading the collection that it's a part of. And when I finished this story, I was like, oh man, that is a classic. To me, it's just one of my favorite of his short stories.
This is one I think I slept on for a long time, and I know that I'd read it previously, because when you talked about wanting to do it, I was like, man, I don't know if I've read this, and I'll go back and give it a read. And you said it was so short, the length of it was pretty short, and I was like, and as soon as I picked it back up, it kind of came back to me, and I think that maybe I'd underestimated this one for a long time, even after reading it, way back when. But yeah. It's pretty great. Like, honestly, especially like going back to it in my older age, I think it hit me a little different or something. So I really enjoyed revisiting this.
I think I've heard correctly that there is a script being developed for this for a motion picture. So I'll be curious if that actually comes to fruition.
Which after The Monkey, it should, because I think this falls in kind of the same category as The Monkey, where you could make something really, really cool.
Yeah, I think that this wouldn't be too tough of a story to turn into a visual experience.
And then we'll be revisiting it again down the line if that happens. So
most definitely.
we have another one coming out soon with The Running Man.
Indeed,
which will be interesting, because I heard I saw not Sylvester Stallone, but Arnold Schwarzenegger got a gift from the producers and director of that movie recently. Did you see that clip? Did I send you that?
No, I'd be curious to see that. You have to share that with me.
It's really cool. I'll send it to you. Everyone can go out there and find it. It's not anything. It just is him talking about how much he enjoyed the film and how it was one of the ones that Arnold had regretted kind of doing in the way it turned out. And he kind of talks about it. It's a very short interview, and then they give him a gift from the movie. It's pretty cool. I'll let everyone check that out, though, so I don't want to spoil that, because it is a fun little interaction, but that's something to look forward to. Nice. Let's get into scene one here, which is the departure terminal set in present day. Mark Oates and his family, they wait to board their jaunt to Mars. The children are nervous, particularly Ricky, whose curiosity about the jaunt sparks the story, which is how we get into kind of what we were talking about with Mark explaining this to his wife and kids. And the setting is clean, efficient, and routine, normalizing what should be an extraordinary event. But it is, like you said, they're not going into kind of the details of everything that could potentially go wrong. It is just set like it's like a dad telling children, like, don't be afraid of the boogeyman kind of thing.
Exactly. He even, like, he's thinking about it like the way that books do so well, where there's like him thinking about what he could say, and he's like, no, I'm gonna not talk about that because I don't want to freak them out any worse than they already are. This is fine. Let me just, put their fears to rest by making this a little more palatable.
Yes, for sure. And that kind of takes us into scene two, which is him beginning the story. And to distract his children, he kind of explains the origins of jaunting. And as we've been talking about, kind of taking on the role of a storyteller, with the tone of the story being warm, almost more like a bedtime story, which just kind of creates this contrast of this the dark subject matter that follows, which is leading into scene 3.
Right.
And I guess we'll just go straight into scene 3 because we kind of covered both of those. But it basically, the build up to this is Victor Caroon's discovery, and Mark's recounting the events from the earliest the early 21st century experiments. Victor Karoun is a researcher who's been dabbling in teleportation, kind of like we said in the general synopsis. And Karoun discovers that he can teleport these inanimate objects, something like an apple or basically anything that's not living, safely. But any living thing that goes through this process dies instantly. For instance, I think one he uses, like the example that is told is like the cigarette. He uses like a cigarette lighter, like a Zippo, and it materializes perfectly. But a test mouse dies horribly. Which I guess, any thoughts on what we've hit on so far?
Yeah, I think, we're going to kind of continue to unfold this, piece by piece, but that it's just, this story is akin to that 80s horror flick, The Fly, with Jeff Goldblum to me, where again, in that story, he's a genius inventor that's developing a teleportation device. But obviously in The Fly, a fly gets into the chamber with him, and the genetics are mixed, and to a body modification horror end. Whereas this one, it's like you don't necessarily see the end coming if you don't already know it. And so you're like, why? And then little by little, this story kind of unfolds it for you, where you're like, why are the mice dying? They're not like getting malformed. They're coming through perfectly fine, and they're still breathing even most of the time. So
yeah, it definitely has the feel of The Fly. And if I'm not mistaken, this came out before The Fly, right?
I think so. This was
because
like
I've heard
80.
it's been called it's been called the inspiration of several other things.
Yeah, I believe. Well, this came out in the same collection as The Monkey, the Skeleton Crew book, which 83. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but
yeah, I know that, like, for instance, Event Horizon, the '97 flick, kind of has a similar feel to this. So if you like Event Horizon, then you'll probably dig this as well as The Empty Man, which the Empty Man is like it's about a former detective who's searching for this missing girl, and uncovers like a secret cult that uses ancient. It summons an ancient malevolent, like, cosmic entity to travel between worlds, kind of thing.
yeah,
So it has a lot of those various type deals. Another book that I read that kind of was similar to this was I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. So that's kind of another example. So if you dig those, for anyone listening out there, those are some similarities I came across when I was creating this synopsis and scripting this out as we listened through it here. But yeah, The Fly, I think, was the one that came to mind for me. It was really funny. It was The Fly, and then also that scene in Pokemon where there's in the Pokemon game, and now I'm slipping on the character's name. Bill. There's a character named Bill, and he's like a Pokemaniac. He has a huge collection of Pokemon. Anyways, he turns himself into a Pokemon, and you have to help unturn him from a Pokemon with a teleportation device. It's like kind of the reverse of this. But as we were reading about these mice, that's what I thought about. It's like, well, fucking accidentally turn yourself into a Pikachu, and then no, all joking aside, I'll get back on track here. The scene 4 I have is known as The Mysterious Mice, where Karoun, he notices inconsistencies on how the mice die, some appearing to be terrified, others calm. His scientific curiosity drives him further, and he begins to suspect that the consciousness itself may be the key variable in Jaunt's failure, which leads us to where his testing goes next, and where the story kind of takes a very grim turn, as most things do with science, where it's like, well, we need to test it on monkeys, and then we need to test it on humans.
right. And of course, in this story, Karoun is funded by the military and by the government. So everything that he's doing is being logged in a computer, and he only has so much time in any given day. And so the government obviously finds out that he's successful because everything's getting uploaded to a computer.
Right. And this kind of goes into Stephen King and some of his anti-government stuff in the 80s. And actually, in more recently, which we didn't talk about this in the beginning, but I'm sure we'll hit it in a show at some point with dairy, and some of the new takes in dairy I thought were pretty interesting. But yeah, so just the government in general, do they ever deliberate like come out? I can't remember. I don't know that I have it in my notes, but do they ever actually say why they're trying to jaunt to Mars? I'm assuming the end of world is nigh, which is why they're going
in
through
the
this.
jaunt, it's for his work. They're gonna be living there for a few years, and this is just a quick way so they don't have to take a 8-month or whatever it is, or 2-month trip on a spacecraft. They can just immediately be there, and then he can begin his job, and the family can just get to their lives as well. So it's just a quick form of travel.
Yeah, what was the necessity for people to start on Mars? I guess those are things I think that could have been further expanded upon if this was a full form novel as opposed to a short story of like why is humanity trying to create this jaunt. And I guess
they're sort of like softballing. They're softballing their way through our galaxy, or our Milky Way galaxy, where they put one on the moon, then they put one on Mars, and then they're putting one on Jupiter's moons, and so it's just allowing us to explore without nearly as much crazy amount of time to get to these places.
Yeah, which I get. It's just usually when humans start trying to explore, I feel like that there's an underlying thing there with natural resources drying up that probably could have been explored if they wanted to. But this is a short story, so not necessarily. I wouldn't be surprised if they ever make this into a film that is explored a little more.
Yeah,
for instance.
Fingers crossed that we see that coming down the pipeline here.
I think that would make it a little more interesting as far as the government deciding that we should have human testing, which is the next scene that we're about to talk about here, which is the government. They end up taking over this project, offering condemned prisoners a chance to volunteer. So basically prisoners who have death sentences or life sentences. One man insists on staying awake to experience the process, and when he reappears, he's insane. His eyes are destroyed. His hair is white. He's shrieking. It's eternity in there. It's eternity in there. Before dying, which takes us back to the original general synopsis with the great line and the great ending. Before dying, and that in turn creates what's known as the rule of sedation, as Mark likes to explain it. But how do you feel about the government? Another classic Stephen King here from this time period. If you go back to The Running Man, right? Let's use people we see lesser than thou, or criminals, to do this testing on, or create this game show around.
Yeah, I suppose it's one of those like, well, if you can just keep it completely logical and take morality out of it, which the government seems to be really good at, then it makes sense. Okay, so this guy's got a death sentence anyway. This is going to speed it up, or we're going to learn something, in the process.
It's kind of dark, but it doesn't seem far-fetched. And I think that's why it works so well in many of Stephen King's. The Running Man is another one that we just talked about, but it's similar, right? Especially if you go off the original, the 80s movie, to the point where they start running out of criminals and start creating their own, but it's a whole other thing. But anyways, this criminal and the human testing, it creates this rule, the rule of sedation, which Mark explains how the discovery changed everything. Now jaunting is safe only if travelers are unconscious. So basically, going and having antiseptic or anesthesia. I'm so bad at pronouncing.
You breathe in the gas. So yeah, it's an anesthesia.
But yeah, you basically become unconscious, and then it's a matter of law and safety. No one must ever be awake during this teleportation. And then at this point, we kind of go back to the present as far as how the story shifts, and it shifts back to the waiting room with Mark like nervously laughing and trying to lighten the mood, with Ricky asking him several very probing questions that he's been trying to avoid, which is, What would it be like to stay awake? Would it hurt? And Mark just kind of brushing him off as a kid asking 1,000 questions. And that kind of leads us into the boarding of this thing and knowing where this is going. How do you feel about Mark at this point as a father yourself?
Yeah, upon first reading this, not this time around, but the first time I read this, it's like about this point in the story, I was like, oh man, I see where this is going, and this is awful. And you just see, because his inability, it's like in life as a parent, sometimes you want to protect your children from this awful world, there's terrible things that happen, and you shelter your children in an effort to try to give them a happy childhood. But that sometimes it's really important to drive home the point of unbelievable dangers, and that I feel like he really makes a misstep here in not understanding his son's curiosity.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those things where you it's not that you tell your kid the stove's hot twice, and then when they touch it, you're like, see, I told you the stove's hot. It seems like something that you really need to get across as no, this is really, really dangerous if you don't follow this exact protocol. And sometimes following the exact protocol in life is important, right? Like, so yeah, it's something I kind of have a problem with Mark a little bit.
Definitely. I agree. It's like when I see that, I'm like, it's happening in real time, and he's kind of adding things up in his head and going, I don't need to tell him about how awful, how messed up, these people come out the other end that are awake, because that'll really freak him out. Instead, I'm just going to say they went crazy and they died, and just keep it at that. So that's why we go to sleep while we take this journey. But yeah, somehow it's, a curious child can go, well, that won't happen to me, and I'm going to learn the secret.
What is the secret? What is the why? Yeah, the why?
Right. And our human mind is not built to endure eternity.
I feel like this should be like one of those Fallout 3 situations in which they have warning films that they make you watch before you start this process.
Right.
It explains the horrors of going outside the vault kind of situation.
Exactly.
Not
make
just
it
let the
palatable.
dad explain.
Yeah. It should be one of those. Yeah. Here's a video. This is why we do this. If you don't do this, this is what happens. Yeah.
So that leads us to the boarding itself. The family, they enter the Jaunt chamber. Technicians prepare them, fitting the masks for the gas. Everyone relaxes except for Ricky, who's still curious, still staring at his father. It's the last moments of normalcy. And moments later, the family, they materialize on Mars. The process is instant, at least for everyone except Ricky, whose mask lies beside him, unused, his hair turned white, his eyes wild with madness. He's laughing hysterically, screaming his final words. It's longer than you think, Dad. Longer than you think.
It's just classic. I love that final line, because it's the insanity is just in the words. You can just hear it.
And it's great because it's not one of those things where you get any kind of extracurricular activity after it. King ends the story abruptly, leaving you as a reader or me as a reader with a haunting realization of what eternal consciousness in a void might mean. And the father's bedtime story has become a cosmic nightmare realized by someone in his own family.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's short and sweet and
terrifying.
Great. But that's the fun of short stories. It's like you can get a fully realized story in an hour's time. And I mean, I think he's a great short storyteller. And like I've heard Stephen King say himself, where it's like the what's the word? The talent to write long form versus to write short stories is a different it's a different skill. So it's like he likes to jump back and forth between those skill sets because he wants to keep both of those things sharp.
For sure. Yeah. I and I think that's showed a lot. And we've done a lot of short stories recently, and we're diving into some larger things as well. But yeah, it is interesting to see kind of the difference. And like as we were talking about this, even then I was like, you wonder why the government is so wants this Jaunt thing to the point where they took over the entire project, and like what's going on there, and yeah, all of those kind of things. But yeah, I mean, we kind of get into some key themes as we've went through this, and one is the terror of infinity, right? Like it's transforming teleportation into a metaphor for eternal isolation. So the fact that they're doing this huge time travel process, this teleportation process, everyone that goes through it, they come out with their hair white, and almost in this idea of that they've been living in a sense of isolation with no one around them and just blank space almost, or something that we can't see or understand. And the idea of your consciousness being trapped in like timeless nothingness, right? Like is kind of terrifying. I mean, it's how you feel about, what would it be like to be locked in isolation for the rest of your life, right? Without any human interaction.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. Just the thought of that. There's so many things that the reader, the person who's putting that, painting that picture in their mind, the places that your mind could go with that is just, it's horrifying.
Yeah, I think people take for granted just having any sort of human interaction. Something recently not recently, but in the past, 5 years plus that we went through was like COVID, and just lack of, which is not the same thing as this by any means, but there was a sense of, there was a lot of people who became depressed or, had
isolated,
lots of isolation and issues with mental health because of that lack of human interaction. It doesn't sit well with everyone. And when you're talking about it for, a child, like basically not aging physically, but mentally, in a way that you can't comprehend, that it's not explained, it is very terrifying to think about.
Yeah, that sums it up pretty well. So I think that's a decent analogy, really, when you think about, just how detrimental just being stuck in your own house and not being able to interact with people for, by comparison, a fairly short amount of time, how much damage that did, then you can imagine, the infinity of the mind and how badly that would damage somebody's psychology.
Yeah, it's longer than you think, which is still great. Humanity, and then the other things that are kind of poked at least as far as a key theme, scientific curiosity and just overall the human hubris. Humanity's drive to explore and experiment, blinding it to moral compass and existential limits, I guess, for lack of a better term, like the idea of exploring to explore, which is what you pointed out. And I'm still don't trust the government in the story, but exploring to explore, and not thinking about humanity's hubris. And we've seen that throughout history, not just now, but throughout history, of how they can get you in bad situations.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's just the thought of like, this future that maybe isn't within our own lifetime, but of us starting to actually explore the cosmos, and sending out ships to just go, like, what's the end result? Like, best case scenario, you end up on a planet that is habitable, but you got to start from scratch. And I mean, what have you accomplished? You found another planet to live on, but you've lost everything as far as like the world that you left behind and the society and the people. And I mean, there's other stories that come to mind when I think about that, you know, versus the reality of us exploring, you know, the infinite galaxy.
Yeah, and that, I mean, that's kind of, you know, like Event Horizon, I think, does a good job of even going in that direction a bit further, right? Humanity just exploring to explore, and then discovering like discovering that's traveled to this hellish dimension, you know, like
Right.
on accident.
There's limits for a reason, and you know, if you believe in God and the devil and those types of things, maybe that God gave us those limits for our own good. You know?
Yeah. Or just like, you know, maybe better ways to approach some of these curiosities, and as opposed to just braving it continuously, or like I said, being overly hubris about the situation. The other thing that is explored, which we've talked about with Ricky, is just the curiosity and innocence of a child, right? A child desire to see for themselves. Like I said, don't touch the stove, it's hot. Don't touch the stove, it's hot. And then they touch the stove. The difference is, in this situation, there ain't no coming back. You know, you don't get a small burn on your hand.
Right. You end up, completely wrecked. You know, your brain is completely fried after that. There's just no way around it. Nobody comes through normal after that. Consciousness is not built to endure eternity. Yeah.
And the last kind of key theme and analysis I had for this was time and our perception of time, which the story is questioning our understanding of time, suggesting that eternity can exist in an instance when consciousness is unanchored, meaning if your mind is separated from your body, that aging process might not be what you think it is, which is kind of what is happening during these jaunts.
Yeah, and I think that it's less to do with, and maybe I'm saying it wrong too, where I say consciousness isn't built to endure eternity. Maybe that's true, maybe that's not, but the idea that a conscious mind is not built to endure isolation for eternity, you know, at least not intact.
Right. I mean, it's also just playing off the understanding of, like, no one knows they don't know how long. There's no quantification for how long that is in years of isolation when this jaunt happens.
Right. What's less than 1 second, you know, in our understanding of time ends up being, you know, like an unfathomable, you know, eons of, you know, billions of years, or who knows.
Yeah, it gets very into like the Star Trek Q's perception of time versus the human traveler's perception of time. But yeah, a very interesting story. One that I think I enjoyed more this second time around, and one that I wasn't even sure that I had read until revisiting, which some of it clicked back, but it had been a while. It's one of those ones where I'm kind of glad it got brought up and that we came back to it, because I don't know that it's something I would have thought about or went back to it by myself without this podcast. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's getting me thinking too, because like, even though I've read everything, there's so many stories that now I'm starting to think about, well, what could we do one on? And I'm starting to think about them and starting to look through them. I'm like, oh, I had forgot about that one, you know. So this is a fun experience for that, just that alone.
And hopefully it was fun for everyone listening out there as well. And if you haven't revisited this one, or if you've never read it, we went through a good job on the synopsis here. It's going to hit all the notes, but I really recommend going and at the very least listening to an audible version of this. There's also several people who do great versions of this on YouTube. This is one that seems to be kind of on people's radar and doesn't seem to get taken down if people want to read it. It doesn't seem to be one that gets hit and demonetized. So there's several versions of that out there. If you have a favorite book reviewer, they've probably done something on this. I listen to the Internet Archive version of this, which I'll always support Internet Archive on this show. I think it's brilliant that people are still doing P2P in a way that makes sense to me. But that wraps it up for Bachman's Basement. Before we get out of here, Chris, you want to give your social tags?
Yeah, you can find me at Christopher Clawson on Facebook. Same thing on Instagram. And those are mostly the ones that I check on the regular.
And for my personal accounts, it's christopher.r.patton on Facebook and christopher.r.patton on Instagram and chris.r.patton on Twitter, but I am probably not going to see anything on there. So focus on the other two first, and then maybe I'll get an alert if you do happen to still use Twitter. And then also, Boink Studios. Boink Studios is the home of multiple podcasts, two that I'm a part of, both Bachman's Basement and the Patton Report. I also do several shows on 6M with Tom Clark, which is it kind of goes over movies and media and comic books and anything that you would like pop culture wise. It's a great show as well, and that is the home of Bachman's Basement, as you guys probably already know, and where all of our previews for next week will be posted. So if you follow them on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, you will get to see teasers for each episode, usually coming out. Usually by Wednesday or Thursday, you'll start seeing little clippets of what might be to come, as well as some great video work done by Tom Clark himself, the pod father, as I like to call him, of Boink Studios. But for now, that was Jaunt, a story that proves Stephen King doesn't need monsters to terrify us. All he needs is the space between thought and eternity. It's the horror of being alone with your mind forever, with nothing to hold on to but awareness itself. In the basement, we've seen ghosts, killers, and cursed objects, but Jaunt is something deeper. It's the horror of curiosity and how far we'll go to see what's on the other side of the door. Until next time, keep your eyes closed, your mask on, and your curiosity in check. This is Bachman's Basement, signing off from the void. And that is that episode. So I'm going to stop recording.
Cool.